Alright, I'm here. Twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com. Thank you so much for joining us here on a Friday. My name is Josh. This is the JMULL Show. Hope you had a great week. Hopefully it's wrapping up nicely, getting towards the weekend here. We got a lot to talk about. It's a big weekend in Major League Baseball. We'll get to that around 11:20. The Podium, per usual, on Fridays. Bronze, silver, gold in some category. You'll have to wait and see what the Podium is today. But we'll start where we have been usually nowadays. That's with the NBA, that's with the Lakers. And listen, I tore Anthony Davis a new one this week at 110sportsmedia.com. His shot selection has been absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. He had scored 69 points in the paint and from the free throw line in 3 games, but was still taking more shots outside of the paint than inside. He got 2 rebounds, both coming in the fourth quarter of Game 3, and just didn't seem all that interested in asserting the dominance and the mismatch that he absolutely has. And then last night, I was swimming in how correct I was, to be honest with you. And then last night, he went back to attacking the rim. He took 3 3-pointers. I saw one of them. One of them he was wide open and he made, so I didn't see the other 2 3-pointers. Don't remember those specifically. But 10 of 15 from the floor. The majority of the shots he took were within, he made 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shots inside the paint. There were 2 just outside and then 2 sort of mid-range jumpers over on the left side of the floor. He missed 2 corner threes. Those were the threes that he took that he missed. And then knocked the wide open one down from the top of the key. A much better game offensively for Anthony Davis. He's still not rebounding to the effect that I'd like him to rebound to. I think he was better in this one a little bit. I think he had 5 rebounds at the end of the game. 5 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals. 34 points on 10 of 15 shooting. Went to the free throw line 14 times. Coach Malone, Denver Nuggets, he said, listen, like the Lakers, first of all, it was a slight shot at the Lakers for going to the refs about fouling, to the NBA about fouls, which is, to a certain extent a Lakers move. But he said, listen, we're going to go and do that too. But part of that is just the fact that they have nobody to guard Anthony Davis without fouling him. And in Game 3, Anthony Davis bailed him out, even though he went 7 of 7 from inside the paint, but it bailed him out some and gave them, didn't put them in a situation where they had to foul him. Anthony Davis, he was so much not asserting his dominance that the Nuggets were able to go to a lineup in which Jeremy Grant was at the 5, and that's not a big lineup. Not a big lineup at all. At least at the tippy top, you're talking about. Jeremy Grant and Michael Porter Jr. and Gary Harris and Paul Millsap. So there's certainly some length and height there, of course, but no 7-footers there, and nobody as tall as Anthony Davis. But a much better game from AD. He went to the free throw line 14 times. He's one of the best free throw shooting big men of all time. 13 of 14 again tonight. LeBron 11 of 14. They combined for 60. You got double-digit scoring from multiple players, including Dwight Howard, who got the start tonight. Played 22 minutes, 5 of 6, 12 points, 11 rebounds. Listen, I see you, Dwight Howard. And a guy who finally has embraced this idea of being a role player, being a energy guy, rebound, block shots, make it tough on Jokic or whoever you're guarding, and that's your job. and you're going to get 6 shots, but that's pretty much as high as you're going to get. You know what I mean? That, you know, and all 6 of those shots are going to be under the basket where you could, you know, pretty much dunking all of them. Yep, the farthest he was away from the basket was about 3 feet. According to the shot chart, all of his other little green dots are literally inside the basket. But when he embraces that role, he's still a guy who was dominant for a little while. You know, it's been, you know, probably 8 to 10 years since that was the case. But you see, my point being that he's better than your average role player big man if he embraces that role of being an average role player big man. If that makes sense. He played well. LeBron, you know, you got 12 from Dwight, 13 from KCP. Rondo was good again, 11, 7, and 5 on 4 of 6 shooting. Playoff Rondo's an asset. Before these playoffs are over, he's going to pass Steve Nash in playoff assists. That's what I'm talking about. I mean, he's of course not better than Steve Nash. That's not what I'm implying here, but I'm implying that he's reliable in the playoffs. You don't be top 10 in playoff assists if you're not reliable in the playoffs. It just doesn't happen. And he was good again last night. Kyle Kuzma got 10, but only because he shot it 11 times. You know, the series was 2-1, and you had one game the Lakers controlled, one game the Nuggets controlled, and a 50-50 game that the Lakers, that bounced the Lakers' way. I still feel like the Lakers were the better basketball team and just sort of waiting for, you know, they pretty much controlled this game from start to finish. Okay, that's not completely fair. But, you know, outscored him in the fourth quarter, and even though Jamal Murray had it going, you put LeBron on him, and that's the biggest difference between the Clippers and the Lakers, is that LeBron, and of course Kawhi is an all-time defender, but I'm not entirely sure Kawhi would be the guy who in the huddle would say, "Give me Jamal Murray." Not that I don't think he could handle it, not that I think that he's disinterested in guarding the other team's best player, but LeBron, you know, Frank Vogel was talking about that in a huddle. You know, Jamal Murray had it going early in the fourth quarter, and LeBron said, "Listen, I want Murray," and he went 0 of 2 from the field after that, knocked down 4 free throws, but didn't make a field goal. And LeBron went out there and shut him down. And this quote is the most LeBron thing ever. He said, quote, "I knew it was winning time, and Jamal had it going." With 5:21 on the clock, they switched. And listen, even though, in this article by ESPN is funny, even though Jamal Murray is closer to LeBron's son in age than to LeBron competed and shut him down to a certain extent, which is his interest in doing that when Murray has it going is a big. You just didn't feel like that was the case from the Clippers. They sort of got scared when they got going, when the Nuggets got going, and faded away down the stretch. And LeBron said, "Listen, I'm gonna go out there and stop him. He's got it going, and I'm gonna make it stop." And that's what he did. Lakers are now up 3-1. LeBron, you know, I find it real hard to believe that LeBron's going to give up a 3-1 lead. If Anthony Davis plays like he did tonight, staying close to the basket again and imposing as well, he was like 5 of 5 from the field, started like 10 of the first 12 Lakers points. In the first quarter alone, he was 6 of 6 for 14 points. 0 3-pointers. We have to give it up to him. We shouldn't have to do this. We shouldn't have to give it up to him for being 6'10", 250, and actually going to the basket instead of shooting 3-pointers in a quarter. But he made the adjustment, and you have to, if nothing, acknowledge that. If you're not going to give him credit for it, that's fine. I don't blame you at all. But you have to at least acknowledge it, that he went out there and played a game much more suited for his abilities, essentially. Murray, 32 points in this one. 12 of 20 shooting. Didn't make a three, but went to the free throw line 8 times. That up and under layup, when he went up to, it looked like he was going to challenge LeBron. LeBron had the position, and he sort of did that up under his arm, and a little jelly up on the glass. That was beautiful. And the amount of time that he was able to hang in the air to do that is really impressive. He's a gamer. Jokic has to be better than 16, 7, and 4. That's right around what he was actually averaging in the regular season. The biggest mismatch in this series, which I think is why it was always going to be tough for the Nuggets, is AD against the Nuggets defense. When the biggest mismatch against the Clippers was Jokic versus the Clippers defense. He was 0 of 4. He only played 6 minutes in the fourth quarter, 0 of 4 from the field, 2 rebounds, no assists. It's just, you just need him to be better. You need him to be a superstar, which is something he's capable of doing, but when the Nuggets really put teams in tough positions, it's when Jokic is the biggest mismatch on the floor. And when you have a guy like AD to guard him, a really energetic Dwight Howard, whoever it might be, that changes. And the biggest option for the Clippers was Zubac. That spells mismatch, and that spells really being able to exploit that mismatch. And it's just not happening in this series because while to a certain extent Jokic is a mismatch for everybody because what he can make his defender do in terms of guarding in the open floor, because he can run the break, in terms of just pulling him out of the pulling him out from under the rim. He's a mismatch for everybody to a certain extent, and has bullied AD some in this series. But AD is still has the bigger mismatch because Jokic certainly doesn't hang his hat on the defensive end. Not to say he's disinterested, but he's just not known for his defense. And then your guys who are maybe known for being a little tougher, like your Paul Millsaps, and known for being able to guard guys a little bigger than they are. There's just only so much Paul Millsap can do. Excuse me. And what that turns into is 30. He should still. I would still argue he should be scoring more than 34 every night, and certainly pulling down more than 5 rebounds. But a much better performance from AD and the Lakers. You didn't get Jeremy Grant played solid again, 6 of 13, knocked down 2 of 6 threes, 17 points. But when Jokic only scores 16, you're put in a really tough spot all game. And then this is the biggest difference between the Lakers and the Clippers, is that the Lakers show up when they get challenged, and the Clippers didn't. When they got challenged late in games, they sort of faded away instead of stepping up and getting bigger. And that's what LeBron's just not going to let happen, to his credit. This series, I was hoping that the Nuggets would win this game just to make it interesting. Lakers are now up 3-1. The Lakers aren't going to lose 3 straight to the Nuggets. It's not going to happen. So maybe now at this point, let's just get that over quickly and get the other series over with quickly. That's also 3-1 at this point, and let's just move on to the finals. We haven't chatted since that Heat Celtics game 4. The Heat also now up in the series 3-1. Excuse me, we're getting the box score from that game up real quick. The story in this game was Tyler Hero, 37 on 14 of 21 shooting. Are you kidding me? It's crazy. If he had stayed at Wisconsin, he'd be in his dorm room doing physics homework right now. Say what you want about John Calipari, and please know that me from Memphis, I don't like John Calipari. And I'm not a huge John Calipari fan in general, not just the fact that I happen to be from the place that hosts the school that he screwed over. But one thing John Calipari does is he gets his dudes to the NBA. Regardless of how he gets, and we've seen there's been cheating before at Memphis, at UMass. And at this point, anybody who recruits at the highest level, I'm assuming, is cheating to a certain extent because, these guys are getting offered money. Whether it was, I don't think it was Kay who was paying Zion Williamson. I doubt he knew about it. But the fact that Kansas offered Zion Williamson's family money and he went to Duke, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to connect the dots. And you see where Zion's family was living and what cars they were driving, and the numbers just don't add up. So I'm sure Calipari is doing things that are, or at least he's getting players, to his knowledge or not, that are gotten to Lexington from by ways that lie outside of the guidelines of the NCAA. But when he gets them there, a lot of them look better than they did when they got there, and they look like they're ready for the NBA. Tyler Hero didn't come in assuming he was a one and done. At least nobody thought he was. By the end of the season, it was clear that was the right move for him. He went early, in the middle of the first round, and now he's taking over playoff games, and Jimmy Butler is wearing his jersey to practice. Jimmy Butler. That's where he is now because of his decision to basically alienate himself from where he lived and grew up and go to Kentucky, and that's the position that he's in now. But he was absolutely dynamite, and he's not just a jump shooter, which I think was the thought about him when he first entered the NBA. Not a jump shooter at all. Not just a jump shooter at all. He's, taking guys off the dribble. And especially if Hero gets to the point where you feel like he can run the point guard position. And not that, of course, Dragic is incredible. That's not, but if you get to a point where you feel like Hero can run the point guard position, and he's going against guys that are shorter than him all day. That mid-range pull-up jumper off the dribble, getting to the front of the rim. He had a disgusting Euro step at one point in that game. He's he scores at every dimension. He's really, really impressive. You got 20 from Bam, 22 from Dragic, and 24 from Jimmy Butler. Not a great game from the Celtics. They went back to shooting 43s and not getting to the free throw line nearly enough. They shot 43s in Game 4. Even though they made 14 of them, they only shot 26 in Game 3. I liked that number a lot more, especially when you couple that with the fact that they shot 30 free throws in Game 3, and made 26 of them. I like that version of them a lot more. Marcus Smart went back to shooting a disgusting amount of three-pointers, 10 points, 11 assists. So he did some playmaking there. But 3 of 12 from the floor, he made 8 three-pointers. And after going 10 of 10 from the line in Game 3, he went 3 of 4 from the line in this one and went back to shooting a ton of three-pointers. Jason Tatum is special. It takes a really special player to come back from a first half as poor as that one and score 28 to shake off the nerves, to bounce back from that in the same game. I think it takes a lot of skill and a special kind of player to deal with that. Now, you hope you get to a point with Tatum where even in a half where he really struggles, he's scoring 6 points or 7 points, or because he gets to the line a couple times, and even if it's forcing the issue a little bit, he's not shooting a bunch of threes. He's trying to get to the free throw line. That's where you hope he gets eventually. But him coming out and scoring 28, I think it was 10 of 16 in the second half, was impressive, and him coming out firing in the third quarter like that was something that only special players do. But now the Heat are up 3-1 in that series as well. I find it hard to believe that a team coached by Spoelstra and just the fact the Celtics can't seem to, they figured out the zone a little bit, but they're either making the best decision or they're making a really bad one. And I don't see a scenario in which the Celtics win 3 straight. Of course it's possible. It's the bubble. It's 3 neutral court games, and the Nuggets have already done it twice in this series, in this playoffs. But they did it against the Jazz and a Clippers team that clearly lacked mental strength, and I don't think the Heat lack mental strength. And I find it really hard to believe that they're gonna, after what they've done in the playoffs so far, lose 3 straight. And the same can be said for the Lakers. You've got 2 teams that are 1 game away from the finals, and both of those teams have been the best teams in their conferences all playoffs. The Lakers, after looking bad in both game ones of their first round and semifinal series, just mopped the floor after that. The Heat, sweeping the Pacers, they got 1 bad game. It wasn't even a bad game. It just didn't make shots down the stretch. But won 4 or 5 against Milwaukee, and they have controlled this series apart from Game 3. It's 2 teams that are 1 game away from the finals, and they're 2 teams that have looked the best, not just in one series, not just in this series, but overall. And at the end of the day, if we get 2 teams that are playing the best basketball that they can in the finals, then I'll take it. And those are 2 teams that I think neither of them will allow that series to be a blowout. So I'm pretty intrigued by a Heat Lakers finals, even if that's not originally what we thought we were going to get. Coming up next, we're going to talk about baseball. We basically got 3 games left, the final weekend. Let's do it. Let's talk about baseball, where we stand. The AL is pretty much locked up. The NL very much not so. We'll talk about all of it coming up next on the JMULL Show on 110sportsmedia.com. Welcome back to the JMULL Show on a Friday. Twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com/live. Thanks so much for joining us on a Friday. Hopefully you're getting through it well. Hopefully it's going quickly and we can get out of here and to the weekend. You know, we're getting very close to an NBA Finals. We're getting very close to a postseason for Major League Baseball. Very, very close, actually. We're essentially 3 games away from most teams as we move forward and closer to the playoffs. Listen, the AL, the American League, is basically locked up. You know, you got the Rays with the best record in the AL, followed by the Twins, Athletics, White Sox, Indians, Yankees, Blue Jays. So 7 of the 8 spots in the AL have been locked up. They've clinched those spots, all of those teams I just named. There are some things that can happen with the seeding. The Twins only half a game ahead of the A's. You know, the Twins, who sit in second right now, currently only 2 games ahead of the Indians, who sit in 5th. Then the Yankees 5 games back, and the Blue Jays 7 games back. Houston basically has locked up that 8 seed. It's highly unlikely that the Angels come from 3 games back and come back from 3 games down with 3 games left, especially when the Astros get the chance. You know, they're going to play the Rangers, who have the worst record in the American League, and the Angels, they get the pleasure of, let's see, they're playing the Dodgers in their last 3 games, who subsequently have the best record in baseball and have locked up the best record in baseball, locked up their division, locked up their 1 seed. They're 5.5 games ahead of the Padres, who sit in second at 34-22. The Dodgers, I was talking to Chris Brown before the season started. I said, "What are you thinking about the best record in baseball after these 60 games?" He said, somewhere between 40 and 45 wins. That's right where the Dodgers are gonna end up. I think I find it hard to believe they'll lose all 3 of those games. If they do, you're still 40-20. You won another one. 41-19 sounds so much better than 40-20. Now that I think about it, but the Dodgers have been the best team in baseball since the start of the year. They started the year as the favorite to win the World Series. They're still the favorite to win the World Series, and they haven't really missed a beat at all. So the American League very much set in terms of the teams that are going to play. Of course, there's the outside shot for the Angels, like I just said, but it looks like it'll be the Astros. There's some bouncing around of seeding that could happen, and even the Rays are only 2 games ahead of the Twins, so there's certainly some bouncing around that could happen. I don't find it likely that we'll see too terribly much of it, but certainly a shot that actually happens. The National League, on the other hand, is very much up for grabs. The top, you've got the Dodgers, who could turn off their phones, go to sleep, and wake up, after the weekend is over, forfeit all of those games, and still be at least 2.5 games ahead of the Padres. Padres 5.5 games back. The Braves right behind them, 6 games back. The Cubs, who have been, one of the surprises of the season in terms of just how good they've been. They are 8 games back. They're 2.5 games ahead of the Cardinals. And those 4 teams, the Dodgers, Padres, Braves, and Cubs, the only 4 teams that have clinched playoff spots at this moment. And the reason why is because you got 4 teams that are separated by 2 games. You got 4 spots, and you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 teams fighting for those 4 spots. The Cardinals are 10.5 games back of first, currently in that 5th spot. You got the Reds and Marlins both at 29 and 28, sitting at 11 games back. The Giants 11.5, the Phillies 12 back, and the Brewers 12.5 back of first place. So you've got 4 teams there that are really in a good spot to challenge for a playoff spot. If we look at who those teams are ending their seasons with, the Cardinals ending their season with, this is probably the biggest series of the weekend. They play the Brewers, so it could be a case of St. Louis winning all three, and that effectively gets them in, but also takes another team completely out of it for those other teams. You'd like to think, because I find it. You'd like to think that you're rooting for the Cardinals here if you're anybody else that's in this spot, to just get the Brewers out and take one team out of the equation. But the Cardinals and Brewers play 3-game series, and it's going to be spectacular. It really is. It should be a lot of fun, and that's going to play a big role in what's happening here in the final weekend of the baseball regular season. The Marlins and the Reds. Miami taking on New York, who is just sort of struggling, sort of stumbling to the postseason. More injuries. What else is new? Cincinnati playing Minnesota. Minnesota currently has the second best record in the AL at 35-22, and that, in the grand scheme of things, is the third best record in baseball, closely, just barely ahead of the Athletics. In terms of overall records across both leagues. And then you got the Giants and the Phillies, who are right in there in the thick of things as well. You got 6 teams that are somewhere between 28-26 and 27-29. That makes for an exciting end to the regular season. The Giants, the Phillies. Philly gets to play Tampa Bay. Like we said, that's the best team in the AL this season. And who was the last team I said? And San Francisco gets to play San Diego, who is also one of the best teams in the National League. So certainly not a bunch of rollover series this weekend, apart from the Astros, who are still making sure they clinch that final spot, who get to play the Rangers, who have the worst record maybe in baseball. Just they're one game better than the Pirates, who have the worst record in baseball. But nobody's getting a gimme series against the Diamondbacks or the Nationals or the Red Sox or the Tigers. It's a lot of competitive baseball between either teams that are trying to get in against good teams or teams that are trying to get in against teams that are trying to get in. And that makes for a really exciting final weekend of the baseball regular season. I guess if you made me pick, so of course you've got those 4 teams that have clinched their spot in the National League. I'll go Cardinals, Reds, Marlins, and let's see. Well, we'll keep Marlins, Reds, Cardinals in there. Based on matchup, you probably would bet that San Francisco gets in instead of Philly, who has to play Tampa Bay. But there's, everything's still up in the air at the back half of the National League. Still 6 teams that very much have a chance to get in. I mean, you're only a half a game back if you're the Phillies. You're a game back of that last spot if you're the Brewers. But like I said, the Brewers playing the Cardinals, and if they win that series, then you're talking about the Cardinals going from 5th to possibly out of the playoffs, which is kind of a ridiculous thing to think about as well, despite them being in the driver's seat in terms of those 6 teams. But we'll see. It's going to be exciting into the regular season, and I'm certainly not one to watch a ton of regular season baseball, but it's definitely what I'm going to be doing quite a bit of this weekend as we get ready to, first of all, talk about it on Sunday night on the Bonfire, part of the 110 Sports Network. This podcast right here, also part of the 110 Sports Network, but that's coming up on Sunday. We'll record that after the season, after we really have things pretty much set in stone in terms of seeding and the teams that are actually in the playoffs in both leagues. But it should be a good weekend for a lot of reasons, and the fact that there's still a lot to be decided in Major League Baseball before we start the playoffs next week is a really big part of that. Coming up next, we're going to do the podium, and then some FYI, get out of here on a Friday. You're watching the JMULL Show on 110sportsmedia.com. Welcome back to the JMULL Show on a Friday. Twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com, part of the 110 Sports Network. Thanks so much for joining us on a Friday. Listen, Tyler Hero is a beast. I saw a tweet the other day. It said Tyler Hero's confidence is somewhere between J.R. Smith just hit a 3 and Muhammad Ali. That's pretty accurate. I mean, there are very few people on the planet who are more confident than J.R. Smith is after he hits a 3, and that's just facts. But Tyler Hero is putting together one of the more impressive rookie playoff performances ever. Absolutely ridiculous. So we're going to do some rookie playoff performance podium here. And see what happens. So with bronze, silver, gold, best rookie playoff performances in NBA history. What we're going to start with here is the, and this is recency bias. We're going to go bronze. We're going to go Tyler Hero. He's 5th in NBA history in points per game in the playoffs as a rookie. He's at 16.5 points per game, 3.9 assists, 5.7 rebounds, almost half a steal a game. He's shooting 44% from the field, 37% from the three-point line. His effective field goal percentage of 55.2%. He's been absolutely phenomenal. He really has. It's been quite impressive. But he goes 3rd here because, you know, even though they run through him in Game 4, it's not like they're going through him every single game. You know what I mean? So what he did in Game 4 was absolutely ludicrous. And I don't have any reason to suggest that he won't continue to do what he's doing. Where we're going to go next, though, and this is out of respect more than anything else, but you have to go with LeBron. I mean, here's what LeBron, and hold on, I have to be very specific here. I'm doing this in terms of rookies for the first time in the playoffs, as long as it's somewhere close to, you know, it's either or. And LeBron averaged 30.8, 8.1, and 5.8, 1.4 steals, 0.7 blocks. He was elite. 46.5 minutes per game in his first playoffs, LeBron did. That's absolutely incredible. Absolutely incredible. I don't care what you say. Just an absolute ludicrous stat line. But the GOAT of all playoff performances as a rookie. This guy was a rookie. He won a title, and he began an era of the Los Angeles Lakers. That's Showtime, Magic Johnson, as a rookie in 1979 and 1980. In 16 playoff games, he averaged 41.1 minutes per game. Shot 51% from the... First of all, he took 0.5 3-pointers per game. There's not a point guard on the planet right now who takes fewer than 1 per game. But he shot 51% from the field, 80% from the free throw line. His numbers: 18.3 points, 9.4 assists, 10.5 rebounds, 3.1 steals. He never averaged more steals. He just got better in assists. I mean, there was one year he was 21.6 and 15.1. I mean, are you kidding me? That's ridiculous. His averages in the playoffs for his career: 19.5, 12.3, 7.7. 50% shooting. 83% from the free throw line, 1.9 steals. Are you kidding me? He's got five chips in 8 years, 9 years. I mean, like, are you kidding me? It's absolutely ridiculous what he did in the 80s with the Showtime Lakers. But 18.3, 9.4, and 10.5. Honestly, we should go and look at Luka's numbers in these playoffs as well. I know he wasn't a rookie, and you know what, and he's played in playoffs before. Yada yada yada. I get it. But his playoff per game this year, 31 points, 9.8 rebounds, 8.7 assists. That's what Luka averaged in the playoffs this year. Only 6 games now, and I wanted to look at team. Like, LeBron played 13, and this is why I didn't put Luka in. He only played 6 games, only won 1 series, and to a certain extent, I'm not sure you can do that. You can't. I'm not sure you're allowed to be at the tippity top of this list if you didn't win the series. That's not a shot at Luka at all. He was phenomenal. He was injured. Kristaps was injured. And they were playing the Clippers. That's not a knock on him at all. He was incredible. But LeBron played 13 games. Hero has now played 13 games. Magic Johnson played 16, 18, 10, and 9.7. Are you kidding me? That's Podium. The best rookie playoff performances. Rondo, I also took into some consideration. Rondo won a title as a rookie in Boston. Of course, that wasn't the pinnacle of his playoff performance, and for the most of these guys, that's the case. I mean, LeBron at one point averaged 35, 7.3, and 9.1. That was in 2008 and 9. In Cleveland, at one point in Miami, he averaged 30, 9.7, 5.6. I mean, even in 2017-18 with the Cavs, again, part 2, in 2017-18, we're talking 34 points, 9 assists, 9 rebounds. That's ludicrous numbers, too, in 22 total playoff games. Rondo had, his best playoffs ever was probably the 2011-12 Boston year. 17 points, 11.9 assists, 6.7 rebounds. But as a rookie, when they won the title, he started all 26 games, played 32 minutes, 10.2 points, 6.6 assists, 4.1 rebounds, 1.7 steals per game. He started all 26 of those games. He's never played, until this year, he had never played a playoff game that he hadn't started. He's played, apart from that Dallas year where he only played 18.5 minutes per game, and this year where he's playing 25, he played at least 33 minutes per game. In all of those playoffs, peaked at 41.2 in 08-09 when he averaged 16.9, 9.8, and 9.7. Playoff Rondo, baby. We stand playoff Rondo around here, even if he gets a bad rep in the regular season, which is a deserved poor rep in the regular season. But that's the Podium. Do that every Friday. Shouts to Magic Johnson. It's absolutely ridiculous to do as a rookie and to win the title. Coming up next, we'll do some FYI. Wrap up the show here on a Friday. You're watching the JMULL Show on 110sportsmedia.com. Welcome back to the JMULL Show on a Friday, wrapping up the programming here. Hope you all are having a great Friday. Hopefully you're getting ever so close to the weekend without a ton of interruptions. It'll be interesting. You know, there's been a lot of talk about fouls in this Nuggets-Lakers series, and there were clearly some things happening with LeBron and Murray late in that game. It'll be interesting to see what comes of that. You know, the Nuggets were called for 28 to the Lakers 25 fouls yesterday. That's a lot of fouls, like 53 fouls in a game. That's more than a foul per minute, which is too many. But unfortunately, you know, we're talking, you know, it's usually, you know, somewhere between 40 and 45, I think. So that's not, you know, there are too many fouls in general. But it seemed like there were some fouls that weren't called when they needed to be called. If they altered the game, you know, of course, if they would have altered the game, of course, we'll never know. But it'll be interesting to see what we actually get from the refs in Game 5, how they respond to that. If there's a lot more, you know, if there's ends up being more fouls because they're calling more fouls on the Lakers, if there ends up being less because they're making a point of not calling fouls on either team, it'll be interesting. We'll see. But you know, I hate that this is what every series, you know. And part of it's the Lakers' fault because they initially go and talk to the refs about foul calls, and that's just kind of a annoying thing to do. So I get the frustration. I just hope that Game 5, Game 6, Game 7, however long the series go, that it's not all about what the refs did or didn't do. Because, you know, we complain when they don't call fouls, but then we complain when they do call fouls at the end of games. Like, there's really nowhere to win for the refs. But we'll see how they react to sort of to the pushback and to you know, Malone saying that he's gonna also talk to the NBA about fouls, the way that the Lakers did. Let's look at the schedule for the upcoming NFL weekend. Of course, you had Miami just absolutely put Jacksonville in a blender on Thursday night, 31-13. It got not fun really quickly, which is why we didn't talk about it. They were up 21-7 at halftime, and it just wasn't a super intriguing game. You know, Ryan Fitzpatrick, 18 of 20 for 160 yards and 2 touchdowns. You know, it is what it is. The Jaguars aren't good. The Dolphins aren't good. We knew both of these things. The Dolphins were just better last night. The rest of the slate for this weekend is pretty good though. Chicago, Atlanta, which is, you know, somewhat interesting. Tennessee and Minnesota. You get Tampa Bay and Denver. You get Dallas. Excuse me, I'm looking at the right one. You get Dallas, Seattle. This is where it really gets exciting. Is, you know, you've got some fine games in the middle of the day. To start the day in the middle of the day on Sunday, but where you're really getting excited is at the end of the week. You know, you've got Dallas versus Seattle on Fox at, you know, 4:25 on Sunday, followed by Green Bay and New Orleans at 7:20. That's Sunday Night Football, and then Monday Night Football. You know, Monday Night Football has kind of become a joke. Very rarely do you get great games on Monday Night Football. This week is an exception to that. You get the two best quarterbacks in football, two of the best teams in football, probably the best two teams in the AFC. Kansas City at Baltimore, Lamar versus Patrick Mahomes. If you don't watch any football this weekend, if you only watch one game, probably should watch that one. That's going to be a ton of fun. You actually get 2 days of good football instead of one, and then kind of an afterthought on Monday night. But that's football this weekend. On the professional side of things, when we're talking about college football, you're getting conference games, which is exciting. You got Florida and Ole Miss, Kentucky, Auburn, Louisville and Pitt. You're getting some conference games. We're sort of getting into that point. You have 4 postponements this weekend, including Notre Dame at Wake Forest. But you're getting some SEC games, some ACC games, some Big 12 games. That's certainly always exciting. Of course, we still got a month until the Big Ten, but you're getting some conference games from these other schools that were operating under the assumption that they were going to play basically from the get-go. I believe that's all I have got for you today. Thank you so much for being a part of the show. We talked basketball, we talked football right now, we talked baseball. Good show. Hopefully you have a great weekend. I'll be back on Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern. We'll have Touchline Talk with Josh Doring and Around the Bases with Chris Brown on Tuesday. Those are 11 a.m. Eastern and 1 p.m. Eastern, respectively. But, of course, before we get to that, I'll be back on Monday, 11 a.m. Eastern. Enjoy some sports this weekend, football, basketball, baseball. It's all there this weekend. Take care of yourselves. We'll meet back here at twitch.tv/110sports, 110sportsmedia.com/live at 11 a.m. Eastern on Monday. Take care. I'll see you then.